Imagine this for a moment. Every word you speak holds power. It has the ability to inspire, to build, to connect, or to break, to hurt, and to destroy. Now, what if I told you that the key to unlocking your full potential, to truly mastering the art of communication, lies in one simple practice: learning to control what you say. We've all said things in the heat of the moment that we later regret. What if you could change that? What if, instead of reacting, you could respond thoughtfully, with purpose and with impact? Today, let's explore how taking control of your words can transform not only the way you communicate, but the way you lead your life. The first step in learning to control what you say is understanding the power of words. It may sound simple, but when you start to truly grasp how influential words are, it changes the way you approach every conversation, every statement you make. Think about this. Every word you speak has the potential to shape someone's day, their mindset, and even their future. Whether you realize it or not, words are weapons of influence. They can build bridges or burn them. They can motivate or dishearten. Words are far more powerful than we often give them credit for. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you heard something that stuck with you? Something that either made you feel amazing or made you feel small? Words have this incredible power to linger in our minds, sometimes for days or even years. Whether it's praise that lifted you up or criticism that held you back, words leave marks. It's because they aren't just noise. They are carriers of emotion, intention, and meaning. Every word you speak has the potential to change the course of a conversation, the trajectory of a relationship, or the mood of a room. So, when you start recognizing the power in every word you utter, you become more deliberate with your speech. Now, think about the words you speak every day. How many of those words are random or impulsive? How many come without thought, just reacting to situations or emotions in the moment? What if, instead of just reacting, we paused for a moment to reflect on the power we hold in our speech? Imagine for a second how your life would change if you spoke with more intention, if you understood that every word could either support your goals or work against them. When you speak without awareness, your words are like a scattered force, without purpose, direction, or intent. But when you speak with awareness, when you truly understand the power behind your words, your communication becomes a tool for growth, connection, and success. In every conversation, you have the ability to elevate the interaction or diminish it. You have the ability to inspire confidence, spread positivity, and build trust, or to sow doubt, spread negativity, and tear down relationships. Understanding the weight that words carry gives you the ability to consciously choose what you say and how you say it. The impact of words isn't limited to others either. When you speak, you're not only affecting the people around you, but you're also shaping your own self-pity and mindset. Think about the way you talk to yourself, the internal dialogue that goes on in your head throughout the day. What impact does that have on your actions, your decisions, and your outlook? If you constantly tell yourself you're not good enough, or that things are too difficult, your mind will start to believe it. But if you tell yourself that you're capable, that you are strong enough to face challenges, and that you have the power to overcome, those words will shape your reality. Words influence your mind and your actions. It's also important to remember that the words we speak are often a reflection of our values, beliefs, and emotional state. For example, when you're stressed, frustrated, or overwhelmed, your words may come out sharper, more impatient, or more dismissive. But when you're calm, confident, and centered, your words will reflect that as well. Understanding this connection between your emotional state and the words you use allows you to practice more self-control. You begin to realize that when your emotions are running high, it might be time to pause before speaking. The power of your words comes not just from what you say, but when you say it and how you say it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to hold back and choose silence instead of speaking hastily. Think about this. When you're in a conversation, especially in moments of conflict or tension, how many times have you spoken without fully thinking through the impact of your words? How many times have you said something you regret? And how many times have those words created unnecessary drama or division? When you recognize that your words have power, you also recognize the responsibility that comes with speaking. The more aware you become of that responsibility, the more intentional you will be with what you say. The good news is that this awareness and control can be developed over time. It doesn't happen overnight, but with conscious effort, you can train yourself to be more mindful of the words you speak. The first step is to remind yourself every day that your words are powerful. That means thinking before you speak, taking a moment to check your intentions, and considering the potential impact of your words on others. This practice will help you break free from impulsive speech and develop more intentional, positive communication. So, as you move forward, start observing the impact of your words, not just on others, but on yourself. Notice how they make you feel, how they affect the relationships around you, and how they shape your environment. The more you understand the power of your words, the more control you'll have over what you say. And when you master the art of speaking intentionally, you'll unlock a new level of influence, confidence, and success. Understanding the power of words is the first step in learning to control what you say. When you start understanding the power of words, it's important to realize that not everything you say needs to be said right away. In fact, many times the most powerful thing you can do is simply to pause. This practice of choosing silence over impulsive speech is a game changer when it comes to mastering what you say. Think about it. How many times have you said something in the heat of the moment that you regretted later? How many times have you been quick to react, only to find that your words caused more harm than good? We've all been there, and it's in those moments when we act impulsively that we lose control over our words. The trick, though, is not just stopping yourself from saying something in anger or frustration, but training yourself to deliberately choose silence when necessary. This is where the art of pausing before speaking becomes crucial. It's not just about holding back in the heat of an argument. It's about taking a moment to breathe and reflect before responding in any situation. When you pause, you give yourself the space to check your emotions, to ground yourself, and to consider whether what you're about to say will serve you or others. You start to see that taking a beat before responding isn't a weakness or an avoidance of the issue. It's actually a sign of strength and wisdom. Now, think about the benefits of this kind of control. How often do you see people who constantly speak without thinking, who react on impulse, and whose words create unnecessary conflict? It's almost always those who speak without reflection who find themselves in difficult situations. But when you make it a habit to pause before you speak, not only do you avoid the pitfalls of rash speech, but you also give yourself the power to craft your words carefully, with purpose. It's like giving yourself the chance to choose your response instead of letting your emotions dictate it. It's important to realize that silence isn't just about holding back in conflict. It's also about choosing to listen more. When you stop constantly thinking about what you're going to say next, you can actually start hearing the other person more clearly. This deep listening is where real communication begins. Many times, we're so eager to share our thoughts or offer solutions that we don't truly listen to the needs or concerns of others. And when we don't listen, we end up saying things that miss the mark, or worse, add to the misunderstanding. The more you learn to pause and listen, the more effective your communication becomes. In fact, silence can also be a great tool for reflection. When you don't rush to fill every space with words, you open up the space for introspection. You create room to really think about the message you want to convey and how you want to say it. It's in these moments of stillness that your thoughts begin to settle and you gain clarity on what's truly important. Instead of reacting in the moment, you can respond in a way that reflects your values and priorities. And here's something crucial. When you pause, you stop yourself from falling into patterns of knee-jerk reactions that can often be driven by your own insecurities or assumptions. When we react without thinking, we're often projecting our own fears or expectations onto the situation. We speak based on what we think others want to hear or based on our own discomfort with silence. But when you choose to pause, you give yourself the opportunity to overcome these reflexive patterns. You step outside of your knee-jerk reactions and make room for more thoughtful, intentional communication. Take a moment to reflect on a time when you spoke too quickly. Perhaps you said something in anger or frustration that you didn't really mean, or maybe you responded without considering the other person's feelings or point of view. We've all had those moments where we wish we could take back our words, but when you pause, you begin to reduce the chances of those moments happening. The more you practice holding back and reflecting before speaking, the more you begin to choose your words carefully, and when you start choosing your words with intention, you'll see how much more control you have over your relationships, your environment, and your own sense of peace. It's also worth noting that this process of pausing doesn't just happen in the moment. It becomes a part of your daily routine and mindset. The more you practice mindfulness and awareness, the more natural it becomes to pause before speaking. This is something you can integrate into every interaction, no matter how small or large. Whether you're having a conversation with a friend, engaging in a meeting at work, or even talking to yourself in your own thoughts, pausing is the key to truly mastering your speech. By doing this, you'll start noticing something remarkable. The more you control your words through pauses, the more your words begin to carry weight. People will begin to listen to you differently. They'll recognize that when you speak, it's intentional, it's thoughtful, and it's powerful. And that, my friends, is the kind of communication that can transform your relationships, your success, and your life. So remember, the next time you feel the urge to speak quickly or react impulsively, take a moment to breathe, to listen, and to reflect. It's in those moments of stillness that you'll find your true power to communicate. When you learn to control your words, it's not just about thinking before you speak. It's also about learning to express yourself in a way that's truly impactful. The next crucial aspect to focus on is the power of speaking with purpose. Far too often we find ourselves speaking because it's expected or because we feel we have to fill the silence. But when you learn to control what you say, you also begin to realize that not every situation requires your voice. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is choose to say nothing at all. And other times, when you do speak, every word becomes deliberate and impactful. This isn't to say you should become a silent figure, only speaking on rare occasions. Instead, what I'm talking about is developing a deeper awareness of when it's appropriate to speak and when it's more effective to hold back. The more you learn about yourself and how your words impact others, the more you realize that your speech is a tool that can either build or tear down, heal or hurt, inspire or discourage. Think about how often we speak without purpose, simply for the sake of saying something. How many times have you found yourself speaking to fill an awkward silence, or giving an opinion on something that didn't really require one? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you have to contribute your thoughts to every conversation, to always have something to say. But by developing a disciplined approach to speech, you learn that sometimes silence speaks louder than words. In fact, silence can actually be more powerful than constantly talking. When you speak with purpose, it's not just about avoiding empty chatter. It's about ensuring that your words are aligned with your values, intentions, and goals. Every word you speak should have meaning and intention behind it. Whether you're giving advice, sharing an idea, or expressing a feeling, your words should be rooted in what's important to you. When you speak from a place of clarity, authenticity, and thoughtfulness, your words will resonate with others in a much more profound way. This purpose-driven communication can also make a huge difference in the quality of your relationships. Think about the difference between someone who speaks with intention versus someone who talks just to hear themselves. The person who speaks with purpose tends to draw people in. They listen carefully, think before they speak, and only share what's truly important. When you're that person, someone whose words have weight and meaning, you'll notice that people will begin to trust you more. They'll listen more closely when you speak because they know that your words carry value. This kind of respect isn't easily earned, but when you focus on speaking with purpose, it comes naturally. But here's the key. To speak with purpose, you first need to develop the awareness of what you actually want to communicate. Too often, we react in the moment without fully considering what we want to achieve with our words. We allow our emotions, habits, or the environment around us to dictate our speech. We need to change that. Before you speak, ask yourself, what's my purpose here? Am I speaking to build, connect, or improve the situation, or am I just filling space? When you take a moment to reflect on your purpose before speaking, you'll find that your words are much more deliberate and intentional. You see, when you speak with purpose, you also stop yourself from saying things that aren't in line with your true self. How many times have you said something in anger, frustration, or fear, only to regret it later? When you speak without purpose, you often speak from a place of emotional reaction, rather than from a place of clarity and wisdom. But when you take the time to truly understand what you want to communicate and why, you align your words with your deeper value. One of the best ways to develop purposeful speech is by practicing mindfulness in your daily interactions. This means paying attention not just to what you're saying, but also to how you're saying it. Are you speaking to impress, or are you speaking to connect? Are your words coming from a place of love and understanding, or from a place of insecurity and self-doubt? The more you cultivate mindfulness in your speech, the more you will understand the impact of your words, not just on others, but on yourself as well. Another essential practice in speaking with purpose is learning how to express yourself clearly and with confidence. Clarity is key when it comes to communication. If you're unclear about your thoughts, your words are likely to be misunderstood or lost in translation. Speaking with purpose means being able to articulate your thoughts in a way that's clear, concise, and to the point. This doesn't mean you have to be overly formal or rigid in your speech. It simply means that you should take care in expressing your ideas so that others can easily understand and connect with you. When you speak with clarity and purpose, you also become better at listening. When you really listen to what others are saying, you can respond with more precision and insight. Your words become more attuned to the needs of the conversation, and this mutual understanding makes your interactions much more meaningful. Ultimately, the power of speaking with purpose lies in its ability to change not just your communication, but the way you experience life. When you become intentional with your words, you shift from reacting to situations to responding thoughtfully. You stop letting external circumstances dictate your reactions, and instead, you begin to consciously create the outcomes you want through the power of your speech. The more you practice this, the more you'll find that your words align with your highest values. And when your words are aligned with your purpose, that's when you begin to master the art of communication. So, as you move forward in your life, remember that speaking with purpose is not about saying the perfect thing every time. It's about being conscious of what you say, why you say it, and how it reflects who you are. And in that consciousness, you'll find the power to transform your relationships, your work, and your life. In the journey of learning to control what you say, one of the most powerful practices you can adopt is detaching yourself from outcomes and focusing solely on the process of communication. We live in a world where so much of what we do is tied to outcomes, to results. We're trained to think about the end goal, the deal we want to close, the argument we want to win, the point we want to make. But when we focus exclusively on the outcome, we lose sight of the moment-to-moment process that actually shapes our communication and determines the real impact of our words. The first step toward detaching from outcomes is realizing that you can't control how others will receive your words. No matter how carefully you choose your language, how clear and thoughtful your message may be, the way your words are perceived is out of your hands. The person you're speaking to might interpret what you say differently than you intended. They might not agree with you, or they may even misinterpret your tone or intentions. And that's okay. It's important to accept that you cannot control others' reactions. What you can control is how you say things and the intention behind your words. When you focus solely on the outcome, on getting the other person to agree with you or on winning their approval, you'll find yourself speaking in ways that aren't authentic. You might say things just to get a reaction, to please the person in front of you, or to steer the conversation in the direction you want. The problem with this is that it puts pressure on you to perform, and that pressure can result in you saying things that don't align with your true values. You might stretch the truth, over-explain, or even manipulate the conversation to create the outcome you're hoping for. Instead, by detaching from the outcome, you allow yourself to speak freely and authentically. You take the pressure off yourself to have everything go exactly as you hope. The conversation becomes less about achieving a specific result and more about expressing your thoughts honestly and thoughtfully. It's liberating because now your words are no longer tied to an expectation. You can speak openly, without fear of judgment or concern about how your words will land. Think about the conversations you've had where you were focused entirely on saying the right thing to get the outcome you wanted. Maybe it was a conversation with a friend, a colleague, or a loved one, and you were so concerned with their response that you ended up saying things that didn't fully represent your thoughts. You might have agreed to something you didn't believe in, told a half-truth, or held back a key point because you were focused on securing approval. These kinds of conversations leave you feeling drained because they're not authentic. You've put energy into trying to manipulate the outcome, and in the process, you've lost your own voice. Now, contrast that with a conversation where you're not focused on the outcome. Imagine speaking from a place of calm, without anxiety over how the other person will respond. You can share your ideas, your feelings, and your truth, knowing that it's not about getting the result you think you want. It's about being clear, honest, and genuine. You may not get the response you expected, but you've communicated in a way that feels right. You've stayed true to yourself. When you focus on the process, you engage in a conversation as a participant, not as someone trying to win or manipulate the situation. It becomes less about winning and more about listening, learning, and sharing. By detaching from the outcome, you're giving yourself the freedom to express your thoughts fully and openly, without fear of judgment or rejection. This process-driven approach doesn't mean you don't have goals in a conversation. Of course, you might want to convince someone of your point of view or share an important idea. But by focusing on the process rather than the outcome, you approach each conversation with a mindset of growth, clarity, and integrity. You're committed to being clear, respectful, and thoughtful in your words, regardless of how the other person reacts. And if the outcome isn't what you were hoping for, That's okay. You've still communicated authentically, and that is where the true power lies. Another key aspect of this process is learning to trust yourself and your ability to communicate effectively. When you detach from outcomes, you build confidence in your ability to express yourself. You don't need external validation or approval to know that your words matter. You speak because it's the right thing to do, not because you need a specific result. This confidence makes it easier to speak with calm and clarity, knowing that even if the conversation doesn't go the way you planned, you've still stayed true to your intentions. One of the most liberating feelings is knowing that your value doesn't depend on the outcome of a conversation. If someone disagrees with you, it doesn't diminish your worth. If they misunderstand you, it doesn't mean you're wrong. When you detach from outcomes, you can hold your head high, knowing that you've communicated in alignment with your values, and that's what matters most. The results may come, or they may not, but the process of speaking with integrity is what allows you to grow and become a more powerful communicator. Finally, when you focus on the process instead of the outcome, you also create space for genuine connection. Conversations are no longer a battlefield where you try to win. Instead, they become an exchange of ideas, a space where you can both share and listen. In that space, true understanding can emerge. The goal shifts from achieving a specific result to creating mutual respect and understanding. This is where real connections are made. So, detach yourself from the pressure to control the outcome. Focus on the process of speaking with purpose, clarity, and authenticity. The rest will take care of itself. When we talk about controlling what we say, we often forget the most crucial part of communication: listening. We're so focused on getting our point across, on making sure we say the right thing, that we sometimes neglect the importance of truly listening to the other person. But the truth is, effective communication isn't just about how well we speak, it's about how well we listen. Engaging in active listening is a game changer. It not only improves our understanding of the conversation, but also makes our responses more meaningful and thoughtful. Active listening is different from hearing someone's words passively. Hearing is a physical process. It's what happens when sounds reach our ears. But listening, true listening, is an intentional act. It's the effort we make to fully absorb what the other person is saying, both in terms of words and emotion. When we engage in active listening, we aren't just waiting for our turn to speak. We are genuinely focused on understanding the speaker's message, which requires patience, concentration, and empathy. It starts with being present in the moment. How often do we listen to someone while our minds are already somewhere else? Maybe we're thinking about our response, or we're distracted by a phone or other surrounding. This kind of distracted listening is common, and unfortunately, it undermines the quality of communication. If we truly want to master what we say, we need to master the art of being fully present during the conversation. This means putting aside distractions, focusing on the person in front of us, and giving them our undivided attention. But being present doesn't just mean focusing on the person's words. It means paying attention to their body language, their tone, and even their silence. Sometimes what isn't said is just as important as what is. If someone is speaking in a monotone voice, for example, they might be trying to hide emotions like frustration or sadness. If they're fidgeting or avoiding eye contact, it could signal discomfort or uncertainty. Active listening requires that we pay attention to all these cues, as they often reveal deeper layers of the message. Another important aspect of active listening is not jumping to conclusions or making assumptions. We've all been in situations where someone says something and immediately we assume we know exactly what they mean. We fill in the blanks with our own experiences or biases, and before they've even finished speaking, we've already decided what they're trying to say. This is where active listening can really make a difference. Instead of assuming, we pause, and give the person the space to finish their thought. We ask questions for clarification, and we seek to understand the full scope of their message before we respond. The Stoic principle of withholding judgment can be a helpful guide here. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most prominent Stoics, often reminded himself not to rush to judgment. In his meditations, he reflected on how important it was to maintain a calm and clear mind, free from snap judgments or emotional reactions. This approach can serve us well in communication. If we can hold back from immediately reacting, we give ourselves the opportunity to truly understand what the other person is saying, without bias or preconceived notions clouding our judgment. A huge benefit of active listening is that it builds trust and respect in relationships. When we truly listen to someone, it shows them that we value what they have to say. It demonstrates that we are open to their perspective and that we respect their thoughts and feelings. This kind of validation is incredibly powerful. People are more likely to engage in honest, open conversations with you if they know you will listen to them fully. And, as you build that trust, you'll find that your words have more impact. The more people feel heard, the more willing they are to listen to what you have to say in return. It's important to remember that active listening isn't just about hearing the words, it's about listening with empathy. This means not only understanding the words, but also being attuned to the emotions behind them. Sometimes people don't need advice or solutions. Sometimes they just need to be heard. If you can listen with empathy, you provide the space for others to express themselves fully, and this deepens the connection between you both. Active listening also helps us to respond thoughtfully. Instead of reacting impulsively to what someone says, you have the time to process and reflect on their words. This gives you the opportunity to choose your response carefully, rather than simply saying the first thing that comes to your mind. Stoicism teaches us to control our emotions, and active listening is a powerful way to do that. When we listen carefully, we create space between hearing and responding, which allows us to respond with reason rather than reaction. One of the most effective ways to practice active listening is through reflection. After someone has finished speaking, reflect back what they've said to make sure you understood it correctly. For example, you might say, "What I hear you saying is," or "It sounds like you're feeling." This not only clarifies any potential misunderstandings, but it also shows the other person that you're engaged and trying to understand them fully. It encourages open communication and helps to prevent confusion or conflict down the road. Finally, active listening requires patience. It's easy to interrupt or finish someone's sentence when we're eager to share our own thoughts, but real listening requires waiting. Giving the other person time to speak and reflect before responding is a sign of respect, and it also gives you the opportunity to absorb all of what they're saying before you speak. It's in this silence, in the space between their words and your response, that we often find the most meaningful insights. In the end, mastering the art of listening is just as important as mastering the art of speaking. The two go hand in hand. When we listen actively, we improve the quality of our conversations, strengthen our relationships, and become more effective communicators. By practicing patience, withholding judgment, and being fully present, we not only gain a deeper understanding of others, but we also create a space for our own thoughts and ideas to be expressed with clarity and purpose. Communication becomes a two-way street, one where both parties can truly be heard, and in that space, everything we say can have a lasting impact. One of the most powerful ways to master what you say is to develop consistency and self-discipline in your speech. It's easy to talk without thinking, to let words slip out in a moment of frustration, excitement, or even boredom. But true mastery comes when we learn to control our speech, ensuring that our words align with our values, goals, and the impression we want to leave on others. Developing consistency and self-discipline in your speech is essential if you want to communicate with purpose, impact, and authenticity. Think about it for a moment. How often have you said something that you later regretted? Perhaps it was an offhand comment made in haste, or a reactionary response that you didn't fully think through. Maybe it was a promise you couldn't keep, or a word you said that hurt someone unintentionally. Words have incredible power, but they can also be a source of destruction if not wielded carefully. That's why self-discipline is crucial. When we practice restraint and consistency in our speech, we not only protect ourselves from unnecessary regrets, but also build trust and respect with others. One of the first steps in developing consistency in your speech is recognizing the importance of what you say. Every word you speak has the potential to create either harmony or discord, to uplift or tear down, to teach or mislead. Words are the foundation of our relationships, whether personal or professional. They shape how others perceive us, how we influence the world around us, and how we reflect our inner thoughts and beliefs. If you want to master your speech, you need to become deeply aware of the power of your words. Consistency doesn't mean being rigid or unchanging in your speech. It means that your words should reflect your core values and beliefs consistently over time. It's about ensuring that your speech aligns with your actions, that you speak with integrity, and that your words reflect the same person you are when no one else is listening. When your words are aligned with your values, they carry weight. People begin to trust what you say because they know that you will consistently live up to it. That trust is invaluable. But consistency in speech isn't just about saying the same things repeatedly. It's about developing a habit of thoughtful communication. Before you speak, pause for a moment. Reflect on the impact your words might have on the person you're addressing, the situation at hand, and the long-term consequences of what you say. This requires discipline, the ability to choose words wisely, to resist the impulse to react hastily, and to take responsibility for what you communicate. It's the difference between reacting impulsively and responding intentionally. The next step in developing self-discipline in your speech is learning how to control your impulses. We all experience moments when emotions rise, when frustration, anger, or excitement can easily cloud our judgment. In these moments, it's tempting to lash out, to speak without thinking, or to say whatever comes to mind. But discipline means resisting that urge. It means taking a deep breath, pausing, and choosing a response that aligns with your values. Discipline in speech is not about repressing emotions or stifling your voice. It's about giving yourself the space to respond thoughtfully and intentionally. One of the most important aspects of self-discipline in speech is the ability to listen first before speaking. When we listen actively and attentively, we give ourselves the opportunity to fully understand the situation before offering a response. This gives us the clarity we need to speak with purpose and relevance. A disciplined speaker doesn't rush to fill the silence with their own thoughts. They take the time to absorb what's being said and then respond in a way that is measured, empathetic, and meaningful. As you work to develop consistency and self-discipline in your speech, it's also essential to practice patience. Sometimes it takes time to find the right words or to fully process what you want to communicate. Patience allows you to hold off on responding until you've given the situation the thought it deserves. It gives you the space to craft your words carefully, ensuring they are the best expression of your intent. Patience in speech also helps you avoid reacting emotionally in situations that might otherwise trigger you. Instead of rushing to defend yourself, for example, you take a step back and choose to respond in a way that reflects your highest values, not your immediate emotional impulses. Another important element of developing consistency and discipline in speech is setting a high standard for yourself. Don't just speak to fill the air. Speak with intention, clarity, and authenticity. Hold yourself to the same standard that you would hold a leader, a mentor, or someone you deeply respect. If you want your words to have meaning, you must earn the right to speak them. This means taking responsibility for what you say, choosing your words carefully, and making sure that your words align with your actions. Over time, as you practice this discipline, you'll find that your speech becomes more effective, more influential, and more aligned with who you truly are. People will begin to take notice of the way you communicate, and they will start to trust you more because they know you speak with integrity and purpose. This trust becomes a powerful tool in building deeper connections, creating mutual respect, and establishing influence in all aspects of life. And it all starts with discipline. The last aspect of mastering what you say through consistency and self-discipline is understanding that communication is a lifelong practice. You will not be perfect at it all the time. There will be moments when your emotions get the best of you, when you speak before thinking, or when you fail to live up to your own standards. But don't let that discourage you. The goal is progress, not perfection. With every conversation, every exchange, you have the opportunity to improve, to reflect, and to refine the way you speak. As you do, you will find that you not only become more in control of your speech, but you also become more in control of yourself. Mastering what you say isn't a one-time achievement. It's an ongoing process of growth, reflection, and self-discipline. The more consistent you are with your speech, the more your words will reflect your inner wisdom, integrity, and purpose. And in doing so, you'll create a life of greater meaning, stronger connections, and deeper impact.